Listen, a sower went out to sow, and as he sowed, some seeds fell along the path, and birds came and devoured it. Other seeds fell on rocky ground, where it had not much soil, and immediately it sprang up, since it had no depth of soil. When the sun rose, it was scorched, and since it had no root, it withered away. Other seed fell upon the thorns. The thorns grew up and choked it, and it yielded no grain. And other seed fell into good soil and brought forth grain, growing up and increasing and yielding 30 and 60 and 100-fold. What do you think the main purpose of a seed is? Say, for example, like this tiny little seed here. What's the purpose of a seed? Well, to reproduce, to make more of itself. Yeah. Now, this tiny little convenient package contains all the information needed to produce more of itself, such as a big tree. That's right, great big tree. Now, most trees, most seeds, they don't get to ever live. And that seems like a shame on the surface of it, but do you know what makes it difficult for a seed to find a place to live? That's right, there's not enough room. The reason there's not enough room is it's already taken. Look around. Do you see lots of bare dirt just waiting for a little seed to fall into it? No. If the tiny little seed falls in right over yonder on the stone gravel lane, it can't get its roots down. It falls down over here in the yard, gets mowed off. I mow her off with the mower. Falls out over here in the field, got to compete with the grass. Falls down over in the woods, got to compete with the trees. So it's difficult for seed, for a tree to reproduce itself. So what do you think they do? They decide, hey, we've got to throw out lots of seeds, hundreds of thousands of seeds, just in hopes that maybe one will become the next them and continue the life of the species. I should just give you one small example. I came across this here little seed. This is from a curly dock plant. How many seeds do you imagine be on here? Now look at this clump here. I'm just going to rip off one clump. And if you look at that, there's all those seeds in one clump, plus all of these. That's a lot of seeds. Now this is really why farmers have jobs at all, because there's so many seeds out there spreading around, and the ones that spread the fastest seem to be weeds. Nobody would pay me much for a bushel of grass weeds, or this little spiky thing wouldn't pay me for that, but they might just be inclined to pay me for one of these. So seeds, they have to be smart, like we were saying. They got to figure out, how are we going to spread ourselves, because the farmer ain't out there spreading us. And they develop lots of techniques. One of the best is good for food. Now that oak tree we were over at yonder, well, squirrel likes to eat it. So it digs it, puts it in a little hole. He forgets about it. Up pops the next oak tree. So the squirrel will be planting the tree. And birds love to go around eating all kinds of berries, and then pooping, and then planting trees that way. So let me see if I can find a few weeds to show you some techniques they use. So here be that little walnut tree that I just pulled up. You can see the nut down here at the bottom, and it was attached prior to me stepping on it, kind of like this, and it split in half, and this little walnut tree pushed up on out of there, and then the fuel source was the nut, all that stored energy in this nut, and at the same time roots were starting to develop, and at the same time starting to photosynthesize, starting to get energy sources from more places than just the original nut. But you can see this nut's in pretty good shape yet. I could probably eat it if I wanted. Tastes a little funky, but not bad nut. This 2 pieces was originally the lima bean. Strangely enough, it develops a root and pushes these lima beans up. You can see this one's not up out of the ground yet. As they get a little older, they look like this, and all concept of this having come from a bean kind of starts to disappear. You don't see that bean anywheres. Here's what's left of the lima bean. Eventually falls off, and you got this cute little plant. You know what it's trying to do? Make some beans, and that means it's gonna have beans that can reproduce. Now here's a unique seed I can't recall ever having seen before. Now of course I'm just showing you this to say this is a potato plant, and usually you just plant the potato, but if you follow it on out here to the end, you see something that looks like a tomato, whole clump of tomato seeds, and I suppose they have seeds in it. I haven't opened one up yet, but you could probably plant it and get a tiny little plant, but I don't rightly know. Just saying, sometimes you have different ways that you can propagate something. Now, what do people do if they don't have a horse to take them where they want to go? Stick out the thumb. They hitchhike. They catch a ride. Well, that's what this here burdock plant does. Now, you probably recognize burdock is this little brown sticky thing, sticks to your clothing like so, and you find yourself pulling it off your pants, and it's just a mess. They invented the modern day Velcro after burdock. Now right here in this picture be 2 different types of catch-a-riders, hitchhikers you could say. This is probably the next most common type. You've probably all encountered these if you ever walk through a bit of an area. But you can see these, and they like to get caught on your clothing as well, and then you find yourself getting them off. This I don't see quite as often, but they're kind of got these sticky points to them. Now if you can look close here on this jewelweed, you see the beautiful flower, so that probably draws in some pollinators. Now above the flower you see sort of a green seed pod right here by my finger. This flower will turn into that green seed pod. Now what's so extraordinary about this seed pod is it will explode if it's at the right stage, and the little seed parts will go flying a distance from mommy jewelweed and plant itself to explosion. Now I'm going to touch this, see if it works. It looks a little on the young side. They like to get a little fatter, but now you see it's not there now. I don't know if you saw whenever you squeeze on them a little bit, you can trigger them if they're not quite ready, but that one just planted itself with a little extra help. Do you know what you do if you ain't no good for food and you don't have a horse? That's right, you fly. Some seeds of the flyaway variety, silver maple helicopters. And what they do is they deliver this little, here's one of the seeds that fell out. This little seed here is delivered into the ground. And let's plant some milkweed seed.
those, Ma? What those? What is that?
Almost feels like you should make a wish when you blow on a dandelion, kind of like it's your birthday. Might harder to blow out than a dandelion. Well, hey boys, it's about time for me to get out of here, but I know Eddie, he's always looking for new things to be drawing, thinking about. He's insatiable, right? Well, I think you should go and tell him his cousin has an idea for him. It would be pretty cool to draw all four types of seeds. Ones that ride in the wind, ones that catch a ride on your clothing, ones that are good for food, and ones that explode. Yeah, design your own. Look at existing types and kind of combine different ones if you get stuck. But think about if you was a weed, how would you get around? You don't have legs. Now remember, you gotta be creative. Maybe even divide your paper into 4 pieces. Zoom in on how the different little seeds work. Maybe make notes. And don't forget to draw the plant, the leaves that they grow on. We're seeing you now.